Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Here. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we are going to talk to Dorothy Lee Dotsie Bausch. Dotsie, after concluding a professional cycling career that produced a medal at the 2012 London Olympic Games, eight U.S. national championships, two Pan American gold medals, and a world record, Dotsie has become a powerful influencer for plant-based eating for athletes and non-athletes alike. Named by VegNews in 2019 as one of the top 20 most influential vegans in the world, she utilizes her degree in plant based nutrition to inform her impassioned messages as an advocate on behalf of humans, planet Earth, and animals. Never want to shy away from facing staggering odds, just like she did in the Olympics while riding for Team USA, whose unlikely and triumphant story is chronicled in the Netflix documentary Personal Gold. Her latest initiative is founding the nonprofit Switch for Good. Switch for Good launched in early 2018 with a television commercial featuring six Olympians from four different countries and proves that cow's milk is not part of a high performance diet. The groundbreaking commercial aired on NBC during the 2018 Winter Olympic Games, closing ceremonies, and on ABC during the Academy Awards broadcast. Bausch is also one of the stars of the film The Game Changers, which chronicles the story of the world's most dangerous myth. Directed by Academy Award winner Louis Chihoz and executive produced by Oscar winner James Cameron, The Game Changers released to the worldwide audience in October 2019 and in just 1 week became the number one downloaded film of all time on iTunes. Long before embodying radiant health and becoming an influential game changer, Bausch struggled for years with severe eating disorders and a recreational drug habit that combined led to a suicide attempt. It was during her recovery that she discovered her gift and love for the bike. Bausch speaks passionately around the world, spreading her message about the numerous benefits, humane, nutritional, and environmental of plant-based eating. Wow, I mean, amazing journey, Dotsie. Like you have achieved so much, and you have transformed your life based
I
on.
can't believe you read that whole thing.
Yeah,
God
I
bless you.
mean, I still have more, but like at some point, I wanted to like break that and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, for sure.
So welcome to the show, first of all. And now let's get to know you. How did you achieve all this? What was that struggle like? When you were going through all that, and what led you to this point in your life?
Oh gosh, that's a really big question. Very, very expansive question. If I really were to just choose one thing, it would be pursuing curiosity. As you mentioned, I found cycling. It was a vehicle for healing when I was healing from anorexia, quite frankly, in trying to be able to move my body in a healthy way again, which I hadn't for so many years at that point. And I fell in love with it very quickly and decided to, try an amateur race and then, the rest is history. And it was, 14 years later that I found myself on the Olympic podium. And those 14 years were really driven by um, curiosity just to see what's possible.
Yeah.
I was in a state in my life where I was so grateful to be alive. I was so grateful that I got to the other side of a debilitating disease that I almost lost my life to, and two suicide attempts. And so I was in a really, I was just in a really thankful place as far as that goes. And I love cycling, and I thought, well, if you really love something, keep doing it. And I started to just get curious about where I could take it, what was possible. And there isn't a single person that knew me back then that would have said, oh yeah, this is something that she'll end up on the Olympic podium for. I mean, that's like laughable if you were to see that back then. Um, I think there's a few people that would have said that I was a determined human, but it was a lot. Of course, determination had a lot to do with it and so many other factors. But if I had to pick one, it's that I just remained curious on seeing what was possible. And I think that's still what drives me today.
I mean, that's such an interesting answer, because I find a lot of people, they lack that curiosity, because they get this idea from the society or from their upbringing that, oh, I know it is not possible, or it's too difficult, whatever it is. But if you just stay open and curious, magical things can happen, right? Now, what was that trigger? Like, what was that day like when you said, okay, I'm going in this direction right now, but I need to change my direction of life? Like, was there specific event, something happened? Like, what caused that radical change in you?
The plant-based change?
Yeah. Well, even going, discovering your, love for biking. So was there a specific trigger point, or you just said, okay, one fine day I'm gonna, start riding and see how it goes?
Yeah. Well, before I was sick with anorexia, I was working in production for commercials and music videos. And so when I was sick for really suffering for about 5 years, and I got to where I couldn't work at all. So as I'm coming out of the healing journey and I start riding a bike, because I'm living out in Los Angeles by that point, and it's sunny here a lot, and you can ride your bike every day of the year. I started riding up and down the mountains and up Pacific Coast Highway and into the Malibu hills, and just the pure freedom of movement was honestly what I fell in love with first. It could have probably been on anything, but it happened to be on a bicycle. I mean, I probably could have been swimming out in the ocean and had a similar feeling. It was just, I felt like I was in prison for a long time with my anorexia. And so it was just that freedom of movement and that thrill of nature and that thrill of, flying down a hill, or, really pushing yourself to climb up a 45-minute hill or whatever it might be. And so it was that really hooked me. And I think, I think, like I said, I think it probably could have been anything that had to do with my physicality. It felt so good to be using my body again, and using it in a healthy way this time, of course, and enjoying seeing what it was capable of. But as I went along, it was like, okay, I love this. There happens to be some natural talent there. I started doing some charity rides, and then a lot of the guys, because they were all guys on the charity rides, said, you're like, you've just started, and you're on this kind of bike, and really you shouldn't be up here with us, and you are, and so it kind of encouraged me to try a couple of races. So by the time I tried a couple of races, I loved that. I loved the competition. I loved how that felt. It was kind of one of those moments in time where you make a decision, because it's like, okay, I can either go back to what I was doing and, making a good living, or I can choose to try to be a bike racer, in which I'm not making any money. However, I can't do the reverse. Like, I can't go do something, do what I was doing before and make a good living, and then later in life decide I want to become a professional bike racer. Like, I'm already 28 at this point, and as you know, I was on the Olympic podium I was already 26, and I was on the Olympic podium at 40, and so it was a little bit of a time crunch. So it was just one of those, I was like, I have to try this. I mean, I'm just going to have to be poor, and I'm going to be a pauper for many years. And I was little tiny studio in Venice, and made sure that my lunches didn't cost more than $4.50, and like, I really was on a ridiculously tight budget. I had a little savings, so that worked for a while, but didn't last very long. So it was really that, like, okay, now that I've made this decision to kind of go all in with something that I'm making no income from, then I got determined to, okay, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. Not that anyone said I couldn't do it, but you feel like that, right? And there were some people that was like, well, this is a little crazy of a decision, right? It's like, you're a little old by this point to be entering a sport. So it was that too, just like, okay, all right, now I'm really determined to, just prove everybody and even myself wrong. Cause I had a lot of doubts, like, oh, this is kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a I feel like that's a very powerful way of sort of listening to your own body, because as you said, like sometimes we get into something, we say, oh, it's good, but as you start to listen to your body, it is sending you all these subtle signals. Okay, this is what you're meant to be, and if people listen to it,
Yeah.
it creates that magical moment. And then the other thing is the importance of time, as you mentioned, like you
Hmm.
put the long term sort of objective in front of the short term convenience that a lot of people seek, and it's tough going, but then ultimately you got the result, which is something to be proud of, and it will last for generations, right? So so that's really good. Like how at what point did you know that you are so good that you can actually shoot for an Olympic medal?
Oh, it took a long time, a very long time. I mean, there wasn't that idea was probably not even seated into my head until maybe 3 years before, I would say, about three,
Mm.
3.5 years before. Yeah, I actually, like a lot of sports, not all, but some, there are a variety of different disciplines within that sport. Running would be one of them, right? Like there's the marathon, and then there's track and field. You got the 100 meters, you got the 800 meters. So cycling is very similar to that. I mean, there's 4 disciplines of cycling in the Olympics. There's mountain bike, there's road, there's BMX, and there's track cycling, which is what I went to the Olympics in. So I raced professionally on the road for about 10 years. And I reached way beyond what I thought I could ever accomplish on the road, won some national titles, and it was on the national team for almost that entire time, and won some big European races. And it was like, okay, this is more than I ever dreamed of. And I was 36, and I was thinking about retiring from cycling and just, trying something else. But I switched over to the track on a suggestion of one of my coaches. He said, I really think that middle distance where you're aerobic, you're using oxygen and not using oxygen in the is similar to the 800 meters really on the track. And he said, I really think that's where your talent well lies, and you should probably try the pursuit on the track, because I just think that you would be crazy not to at least give it a go. And so I fell in love with that event, and then eventually team pursuit, which was what I was in the Olympics in. But I just fell in love with what were the new challenges on a track. I mean, track bikes don't have any brakes. They're fixed gears, so you don't have any shifting, right? You're stuck in whatever gear you put on when you go. And so I fell in love with all the new nuances and technicalities of track cycling. I mean, it's like a whole nother mind game for sure than the road is. It's like a fishbowl when you race in the track. You feel like you're in a fishbowl because it's like large crowds, and you feel like everyone is almost sort of staring at what you're doing down there on the track, and you just have such shorter races that you at the highest level you can't make one single mistake. Whereas on the road, in a 4-hour road race, you can make a few mistakes and still maybe make it to the finish line first. But I loved that exactness of the track, the intensity of the track, and just that I liked the pressure. I liked seeing if I could deal with the pressure of the track, like the psychological pressure, and also the physical pressure, because it's very different from road. I had to build a lot more muscle in my glutes and my hams, and it was just a whole new challenge that I fell in love with, and then I got really good at it. I just barely missed making the 2008 Olympic team, and then around that time was when I realized it was possible to go for 2012. So then it was pretty much focused on that. But you don't find out that you make the Olympic team until just some months before. It's not like 2 years before. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there were tons of women going for the spot that I went in, right? So you're
yeah,
competing with your teammates, but against your teammates, kind of like with team sports, like soccer, right? Like
yeah, 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 of
it's
course, of course.
it's intense and a bit odd, because they're you need each other, but you're also competing for each other's
Yeah,
spots. So it's a trippy journey. But
yeah.
anyway.
It's very interesting the way that you put it. It sounds like you were sort of almost in a competition with yourself, like trying to perfect your your art and your, like, pursuing your passion, rather than sort of, keeping the medal in the Olympics as the goal. Is that sort of the...
Yeah, I mean, I think I always had a pretty good perspective because I knew where I came from. Like I knew how I started the sport, and a lot of the girls that I was racing with had pretty just kind of, I would just say, typical entry points into the sport, where they picked it up in high school or they picked it up in grade school, and they'd been riding ever since. And so mine was definitely atypical, and I just sort of felt like, this, just I had so much joy around the experience itself, that whatever was going to happen at the end of the day, like if I was even going to make the Olympic team, or if we were going to bring home some color of medal, it just wasn't, that's just not what fueled me, which I also think is what helped me be able to retire from the sport and be happy and go into something else, and not, my whole entire identity was not built around that Olympic medal. It never has, it never will be. I mean, it was an incredible moment in time, and I will never forget it. And my teammates and I are, like sisters, and I have so much joy and so many good memories, but it doesn't define who I am as a human. And I think that's what a lot of times what happens with elite athletes is they do it for so long from such a young age that they're completely defined by their results. And so when it's over and you're not getting any more results, they don't feel relevant in society anymore. And, they haven't necessarily been able to really kind of uncover who they really are as a human. So it can be really challenging. I know a lot of sad stories, of elite athletes retiring, but so luckily that just wasn't my jam. So the medal, I mean, as we were, 6 months out, it was, I mean, you're going for gold. You're always going for gold. I mean, you don't go to the Olympics and be like, well, it doesn't matter what happens. No, you're definitely going for it. But the United States is a, not, as we all know, because a lot of people don't even know what track cycling is in the United States. It's not a big celebrated sport here. It is a huge celebrated sport in Great Britain, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Germany. So over there, I mean, like, those women are recognized on the streets when they're walking around, the ones that have medals from my Olympics, which that's not the case here. So we were up against these like track cycling gods of countries, right? Who that, like, it's like in their pedigree to get on the track. And as a 3-year-old, just like here, it's like, to hold a baseball bat when you're 3 is the thing. So we knew that we were going up against giants. Of course, we've been competing against them at World Cups for 3 years. We had never beat Great Britain. We had never beaten Australia, and we had never beaten New Zealand with their A team in there. So, I mean, we've gotten second to them. So we came into the race at the Olympics as the complete underdogs. I mean, they had the bookies there, because they bet on it, had United States 5th. The very best possible place was going to be, we would be in 5th. So we were major underdogs. So it was like we were just fighting to just do our very best and give the performances of a lifetime, because we had to do 3 rides to make it to the medal final. So it was that. It wasn't this thing. It wasn't this medal or this color of medal. It was just the fight and the grit to just perform at our optimum that we possibly could. And we did. And that doesn't always happen at the Olympics. It doesn't. That's why you see multi-time world champions come to the Olympics and get 6th. It's a different environment, and it's very nerve-wracking, but we just, for whatever reason, were able to put it together. On those 2 days.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I can empathize, people lose their identities. But also I think we can translate it into other fields as well. Like, now you are doing all this good stuff for animals and healthy living, entrepreneurship, all that. I find that in every field, people, they run after a goal that is a little bit superficial or artificial, rather than, as you said, like, really focusing on performing the best that they can. So so let's try to relate your experience in the Olympics back to, like, the entrepreneurship world, or what you're doing now. So how do you plant the same kind of mindset in others around you, that hey, the goal is not to, achieve that medal or achieve something that is like outside of us, but look
Yeah.
inside us and see what is the best we can bring.
Well, our team at Switch for Good. They're all here because in their deepest part of their souls, they just want the world to stop eating their friends. I mean, that's really at the basis of it, right? So there's a deep, deep love and respect and appreciation for the other species that we share the planet with. And so there really isn't any need to convince anyone to be any certain way, or it's like that's who they are as human beings, which makes it such fun to work with them, because we all are very, very similar in our ethos of what makes us get up in the morning, which that's not the case at every company, right? And not even every nonprofit necessarily. So that is just so strong and comes forward in everything we do, that that's always at the center of our discussions, right? Of our why. That is our why. And so how can we encourage, help, inspire, educate, help the world to tiptoe into eating more plants, right? For different reasons, right? People have all sorts of different entry points into all sorts of, different tunnels. So there's one tunnel that might be plant-based eating, and people have different entry points, whether it's they're really interested in just feeling better, feeling more vibrant, feeling less lethargic, feeling less inflammation, feeling more energy and more vibrancy, or if they are just really freaked out by what's happening to our planet, right? And they go, okay, yeah, animal agriculture is like 40% of that problem. So I want to, reduce my meat and dairy, there's so many different reasons. So understanding psychology, and then just building our campaigns and our programs off of that. But I don't really have to do any rah-rah as a leader. It's like they just came this way. And it's nice, because I think that would be tough if you really believe in something as a leader, and then you're constantly trying to convince the team, which happens in for-profit for sure. If you're just selling a widget or whatever, I mean, not everyone's like crazy passionate about chairs or whatever it might be. So I think that would be challenging. I probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Well, what I was, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. You have a team that resonates. What I was like really trying to get at is like, Olympic medal winners, they have a different mind. It's not like you belong to 0.01% of the population. So obviously there is something different in your mind that happens. And to relate it back, maybe let's change the conversation. Like, you're going up against another big establishment now.
Right.
Meat is a multi-trillion-dollar company, industry globally. It's not an easy task to convert large populations to so it's almost like going into another Olympics, right?
Yes.
So what in your mind happens that I can say, okay, let's take this nugget or a piece of wisdom that I can help our audience plant in their head in whatever venture they are, focusing on, whether that's business, whether that's, parenting, whatever that is, to adopt that kind of Olympic medal winner mindset in what they are doing.
Yeah.
That they can,
Yeah, no doubt. I get exactly what you're asking, where you're going. It is true. We're like the 3% going up against the 97%. So I mean, it's like not in our favor. we're gonna win the battle. But I think I don't think I know for sure. At the end of the day, it's grit and resilience. I don't think very many people realize, any Olympic medalist out there, any high level athlete loses significantly more than they win. Like, I mean, it's, I don't even care if you have Michael Jordan, right? Like I think that there's an interesting quote about like his shot record, right? And it's like, you miss thousands of more times than you actually make. And so when, as an athlete, it was constant, a barrage of being beat down, being let down, being not selected, right? I didn't get selected for every World Cup. Being told no, being told you're not good enough, being told that you're almost good enough, but not quite, constantly. And so, and it's a great question whether that's just born and built in or whether it's learned. I tend to think it's probably of a combination, but I do think that it has to be an aspect of it has to be born. It's hard to train that from when you're teeny tiny. And from when I was very little, it was like I just felt like one of those like pop-up dolls. I just was somewhat unfazed by people telling me no, or people telling me I couldn't do something, or that I wouldn't be any good at anything. It's not like it necessarily inspired me to try even harder. I just didn't care and I didn't listen to them. So it was that. So it's that, because going up against Big Dairy, I mean, it's almost hilarious how many times we lose, and how, I mean, if you're doing anything else, you'd be out of business. So it's the same thing. It's just kind of like, I knew what I was getting into. I mean, I'm not an idiot, right? So it's not like I thought, oh, this will be easy. So I knew what I was getting into, and I knew that I had the built-in, not only resilience, but now by this point, the resilience practice, because as an athlete, that's what I dealt with for 14 years. So it's like, now if I do get a little sensitive, because I got to tell you, as I get older, I get a little more sensitive, a little bit more emotional. Stuff gets a little, and this to me is a much bigger fight than an Olympic medal, because it's like, billions of lives on the line. And so I will sometimes I'll get down, or get, and I'll notice, oh, wow, that really got to me, but I'll remind myself that, I can't be down on the floor sobbing and fight at the same time. Right. That is not the stature that I can be in to be a successful fighter, because that's really what we're doing. Right. We're just in a big boxing match. Yeah. So I think the resilience and the grit to just keep after it, after it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, after talking to so many successful people, looking at my own life and other people's life, that always comes up, just people think that other people have it easy, but I think that's the universal sort of a misconception that everybody has.
Yeah. So we have this ridiculous world that lives on social media that I think that's part of the problem, right? People think that's real. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the real sort of issue here about animals and plant eating. So
sure.
When we say, people need to move away from eating plants, like is there some specific degree as to which they can start, or it has to be like all or nothing? So let's start with
no, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I mean, it certainly doesn't need to be. It can be whatever you want or need it to be or desire it to be. I think at the get-go, it's just it's important to unravel probably the biggest lie we've been told about in food anyway, and nutrition and health our whole lives, is that you need protein from animals to be strong and healthy. The truth is, you need protein. You need the macronutrients. You would die if you didn't have one of them, right? Carbohydrates and fats and protein. But it doesn't have to come from animal sources. It can come from plant sources in the form of lentils or chickpeas or sweet potatoes or even broccoli. Broccoli has quite a bit of protein in it. In fact, if you ate a 2,000 calorie diet today, and it was all broccoli, which I do not suggest, because that would also be an extraordinary amount of fiber. you probably have some. But if you were to do that, that would be 220 grams of protein. So it's just shocking for people. I don't think people generally think vegetables have any protein, but they do. Everything that's living has protein. So that's what I feel people just have to understand and first just grasp. Because if you think that you're not eating something and that's unhealthy, right? Like you're not getting protein and it's not from an animal source, which is, what the industry they've been the ones to feed us that, right? Nobody else. And they can unravel that that's not the case. It's like, oh, okay, I'll get all the macronutrients, and then the micronutrients, which is what I focused on the last couple of years of my athletic career, as I switched over to a plant-based diet, in recognizing how critical all the micronutrients are, right? Because those are the true workhorses of like really vibrant health and really vibrant performance and output. So it's just understanding that. And then you got to have a desire, right? Like I said, like whatever your why might be to make a change. Let's say it's January and you're just like, no, I want to wake up with more energy. I just feel kind of bleh. And I think my diet might have something to do with it. Great. You could just start with a couple of meals a week. Now, is that going to be a shocking change in how you feel? Probably not. You probably have to make some bigger changes. But if you're someone that does better without sudden changes and just step by step, which is totally fine, then do it step by step. I mean, do it. If you want something to work, you got to do it the way that you know that it's going to work for you, because we all know ourselves pretty well. So it isn't something that has to happen overnight. A lot of people do it overnight and a lot of people don't. It's just really knowing, it's a fun journey. I will say that, because I did it. I ate meat and dairy on every plate for 35 years of my life. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Kentucky. I grew up on brisket and fried chicken and, collard greens with a ham hock in it and all the fixins. And so I did it pretty overnight, over a couple of weeks, just trying to figure things out. And it was exciting. You know what I mean? It was like, I don't know, wow, what is this going to be like? What is this going to feel like? And what am I going to get out of it? Is it really going to make me perform better, make me recover faster? And it certainly did. And I mean, I'm 12 years later, so I'm still at it, but I don't want people to ever feel. What I hate the most is when people feel like it's a diet, because it's not a diet, right? It really is like a heart-centered kind of lifestyle shift. So number two, don't think of it as a diet like that. I mean, what the diet culture, the supplement diet culture is $80 billion, right? for a reason. So because people fail, right? They start, fail, start, fail, start, fail. So if you can just think of it as an enlightening lifestyle shift, you're going to be off to the races a lot better and a lot more fulfilled than if you think of it as a diet, because diets are yucky. Nobody wants to go on a diet.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the best way to infuse that everlasting change is to make it easier for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let me play the devil's advocate here. Like, a lot of people, they will, again, diving into my like sort of psychological skills that I have, is would they get motivated to do something when they can see tangible impact, positive impact on people like them. Like, if they hear it coming from you, they may think that, it is a different world for you. You are an Olympian, you are very health conscious, your schedule may be different than theirs, their life and professional obligations may be like different. And then that's where the conversation stops, and like, this is like too much of a leap for me to change. So can you share with us maybe like a couple of stories or success stories of so-called people that people can relate to and say, hey, this person has a normal job, 9 to 5, 3 kids, this is what happened in their life, something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's really important to have a why. I know it's important to have a why. Every single person in the whole wide world that's ever been a guru on behavior change, what does it start with? A why. Now, your why could be curiosity, but your why could also be that you're feeling exhausted and you don't have the energy to play with your kids when you come home from work.
Yeah.
Perfect why, right? Okay, so I want to make a shift in that. What does that look like? What might that be? Well, more energy inducing foods and less foods that are sucking energy from me, right? So if you say, okay, I understand, and we don't have to go into, they can certainly go to the website for understanding why plant foods would be more energy producing. You say, okay, I want to try that. Then you say, okay, I'm going to try to eat plants 1 meal a day out of the 3 meals out of the day, and I'm going to fill my plate with color. That's one of the first things that you want to look at, because when we eat a lot of animal foods, it's kind of void of color, right? meat is brown or
Yeah,
tan, and
yeah,
dairy's the. So it's really looking at those vibrant colors. That they're vibrant colors for a reason. They are going to make you feel vibrant. They are filled with antioxidants and all the cancer cell fighters that you could possibly want in one single blueberry is like a
yeah,
burst
yeah,
of power. But so I think that it's doing it that way and doing it enough that you start to feel the difference, because in order for your why to continue, it needs to be working. It needs to be making a positive change in your life. It needs to be giving you a little bit more energy to come home and play with your kids after work. So that's not going to work as far as changing your plate once a week, right? Like you're just not going to probably see the benefits. Just like nobody tells you to start exercising, 15 minutes once a week.
yeah, yeah.
It's just not going to cut it. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish it were different, but it's just not.
Yeah.
So do it enough that you can notice a difference. And one meal a day, from all the feedback that I've gotten to people that have done it that way, that is enough to notice a difference. And once they start to notice a difference, it's like game on, and they're just wanting to fill every plate that way and their kids' plates that way. And that's I think a good way to start in, to set yourself up for success, right? Which is
Yeah,
what's kind of what you're
yeah,
asking. It feels
yeah,
like it's
absolutely.
hard, but it's it's just it's not. And you don't have to fill your plate with, there's a lot of vegan replacement stuff out there, and people say, oh, I don't know, that's not healthy. Well, it's healthier than the processed
Yeah,
actual animal. However, you don't have to touch any of that stuff if you don't want to, or if you want to use it as like kind of a process food, like vegan chicken nuggets or something like that for your kids, or as you're transitioning over, it's fine. But you can eat, you know, 98% whole foods from plants and have tons and tons of flavor. I think we don't remember that what we flavor our animal foods with is plants. Nobody just throws
yeah,
a dead animal on the grill. What
yeah.
do? They tenderize it, they marinate it, right? And they soak it in herbs and spices so that it,
Exactly.
has that flavor. And so that's plant food. So anybody that thinks it's dry and not flavorful is wrong. It's
Yeah.
wildly delicious. In fact, I feel like my taste buds came alive when
Mhm.
I switched over to plants. I mean, I just have so much more of a sensory experience with food now and can
Yeah.
taste so much better. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, that's great advice. Like, start small, and then the other thing that I really liked is like explore out there, because a lot of people don't even realize how much variety there is out there. And
Right.
then not even that, when we talk about like different cuisines, because the same plant can be cooked in like multiple different ways, and being an international citizen, well traveled, like that's
Yeah.
another aspect of something that you explore inherently as you go through life. But a lot of people don't get to do that. So if they look at it
Right.
from that point of view, there are so many options now available, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
There are so many. And I mean, when we eat, let's just call it kind of like, traditional standard American diet. I mean, if you think about it, you only eat like 4 animals. You only have like 10 meals that you make in any given day, or not day, but week or month, or, it's not, the variety in the plant world is way far and beyond the variety in the animal food world. That's what I've learned. I mean, just what,
Yeah.
what fills my plate now, it's
Yeah.
just so many different colors and flavors and experiences. Cause I was that same, I only ate like 3 animals probably like that. I
Mhm.
didn't. Yeah. So anyway, I think when people think it's like deprivation or it's not as much variety, I have found that to be, it's the exact opposite. It's more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now what is it that you do? Like, what are your goals and missions for Switch for Good? Like, do you partner with other organizations? What are your objectives?
Yes, we definitely do. Is you can't, in this, you can't do it alone. It is not like we said, when you're going up against the 97%. So we started in 2018, just out of a deep desire to tell the truth. After being an athlete for so long, I had been kind of uh, sort of fed even more lies than the regular everyday human on what I needed to fuel my body for performance. And I was, like I said, I went plant-based a couple of years before the Olympics. And so I knew better. And I was tired of Olympic athletes being, fed this misinformation. The dairy industry is a title sponsor of the US Olympic Committee. So it was just pressed and pushed on us like some kind of health food for such a long time. So we started the organization really not knowing we were going to start an organization. We started with a desire to tell the truth. And so we got athletes and some wonderful filmmakers and some athletes together, and we put on a commercial on the closing ceremonies of Olympic Games in 2018, as you said in the intro, with 6 different athletes from 4 different countries standing up and saying, we don't need dairy foods, animal foods to be great at what we do. And so it started that way, just more of a just standing up against the man, standing up against the lies, standing up against the misinformation. But shortly thereafter, we were inspired to create an organization. One of the many reasons is because the dairy industry came to NBC and got our commercials kicked off. So there's the power of the dollar at work, and our tax dollars, because all of us that pay American taxes fund big dairy, whether you like it or not. So it was really, started from a passion and a little bit from anger, if I'm honest, of how we got started. But we shortly thereafter, we realized that we wanted to continue to tell the truth. And so we formed an organization. So we work in the swim lanes of definitely behavior change and culture change, and helping people to have the resources and the education they need to make the change. But we're also really we have expounded over the past about 2.5 years in a governmental policy change and food policy change, corporate food policy change. So, our whys are health, food justice, because we've got a big food justice issue surrounding dairy, especially future of our planet. And we partner with health experts and social justice warriors and social justice orgs, policymakers and progressive corporations, right, to promote ethical lifestyle changes and certainly widespread behavior change, we hope.
That's great. That's a Herculean task, and I'm glad that you are on top of it, and I feel like people are changing, because from what I'm hearing, it is taking effect. So people are realizing the benefits of this. So the credit goes to people like you and the organizations that you're running to spread that awareness. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, before I let you go, like, if people want to join your movement, if they want to work with you, connect with you, what is the best way they can reach out?
Oh, that's cool for you to mention. Well, if they're interested in trying a plate full of plants a day, come visit us at switchforgood.org. It's switch the number 4. And we are that on like every other social media channel. So we're really active on Instagram. And so that's probably the best way to just sort of dive in, sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll get all this information about our work. We'll get learning journeys to you. Always, you can email me anytime at Dotsie@switchforgood.org or info@switchforgood. Our education director gets those emails. If you're curious, or if you're stumbling, or if you're trying it and it's not working, anything you need. I mean, really, I think those are the emails I love to get the most. Someone that's given something a good try and just needs a little encouragement, a little help, a little redirection. So we love doing that too. I'm not super active on social because I'm old now and it's just not that interesting to me, but I am Vegan Olympian on Instagram, and we also have a Switch for Good podcast. I always forget to mention that. And I'm on a podcast. So that's podcasts are such a great way. Like, if you're interested in a subject matter and that podcast focuses on it, we have over 210 episodes. We've had the podcast for 4 years. So if somebody's like really wants to hear from doctors, dietitians, and nutritionists, physiologists, elite athletes, those are usually our guests. So we get down to the evidence, we get down to the science, and So that's probably a great place
That's
as well.
awesome. Great. We'll put those links in the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was a very full of information, full of entertainment, and a lot of inspiration as well. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate it. Good luck, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you.